820 Big 550 KTRS. Governor Nixon implored a commission to study all the issues in and surrounding Ferguson, and two of the co-chair people are here with us. Reverend Starsky Wilson. Reverend, welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thank you very much for having me.
Any relation to Starsky and Hutch?
Only that I was born at the right time.
Okay, good. All right, good. And then Rich McClure, thank you very much for coming here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having us.
What were you guys charged to do? What's the mission of this commission?
Yeah, so ultimately the mission of the commission is to engage in an unflinching study of the social and economic conditions that led to the August 9th shooting, to review that from a multidisciplinary kind of perspective, to engage in the kind of study that we need, and to make some very direct and clear policy recommendations to help us to develop a stronger, fairer region for all of us. So we've got to study the issues and come up with some policy solutions.
Some members in the media, including me, have been critical of this commission in that, haven't we already studied this enough? Aren't these policies, don't we already know the problems? Do we have to wait 18 more months to study it again?
Yeah. Well, I think there are a couple of things to say to that. First of all, while the commission report's due in September, which is a number of months down the road, we're not going to wait for that deadline. So we'll work through interim recommendations, particularly those that require legislative or executive action, and we'll be asking for those actions sooner rather than later. So in terms of time frame, you don't wait 18 months. Secondly, I think the key here is to focus on near-term actions that can be taken, and call on the policymakers to do that, and then to muscle, to get the community engagement and the lobbying muscle to get those actions taken. So you understand the skepticism on, is this just another commission report?
Right.
But I think the reason we have the opportunity here is the energy level in this community for positive change, and we hear it all over because the tragic events of Ferguson have shown a vivid spotlight on what we need to be doing here. So what we need to do is leverage that energy for change and call for action and then push for it.
There is a diverse group of people on this commission, right? 16 people, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Very diverse.
Yeah.
Black, white, clergy, business,
Different
young,
ages.
old, everything.
Yeah.
How many have to agree to the recommendations for it to go forward? Right? I mean, how are you going to find consensus with all of this?
So, I mean, part of the question is, do you really need to find consensus? Part of what we're doing early in our first meeting is to set some of our guiding principles for how we move forward. Will we do so in a consensus format? Will we do so in a format where we believe there's enough critical mass? Will we defer to the work of folks who have been engaged in committees in this work, in working groups that are, so those are things that we still need to work out. What I will say is, in our conversations that we've been able to have with these commissioners, we know that they're not only diverse in their backgrounds and life perspectives, but they've also been critically engaged in these conversations about all of these issues. And I think this is something that it's a unique opportunity to bring them together and to hear from them. And I'll just say to the question before about us having studied these, there are new bodies of work here as well. As I talk to my philanthropic colleagues around the country, one of the things they're concerned about is the fact that they're very urban centric, that our structures and supports for support services, even the nonprofit industry, tend to be centered in cities. Well, here we have an inner ring suburb, and really an amalgam of inner ring suburbs in North County that national philanthropic colleagues are really interested in studying and engaging, because the kinds of issues that come up here, including the fact that the topography of Ferguson is also where we have our state's only unaccredited school districts. So this is the place where we see the fragmentation of policing and community relations come to bear in a unique way. And quite frankly, we've not taken the time to effectively study those things, and this gives us an opportunity where we must.
Better Together is an organization that is funded privately, that's doing a list of these studies. They did one on healthcare, they did one on schooling, they did one on policing, they did one on muni courts. And the muni courts one that just came back was pretty stark and pretty graphic in that 80 municipal courts, 56 judges, 93 different police departments. Look at the schooling, how it is unaccredited. All of these things are known. All of these things are real issues, trying to be worked on for years. They can't agree to a simple law that says if you live in a district that is unaccredited, you're allowed to go to another school. That's been in the courts for 20 years. And each time the court has ruled again and again and again. So if you do come up with these recommendations, which I'm sure you will, and I'm sure they will work and to sort of mend the fences, to implement them seems like it's impossible.
Well, you, McGraw, identified the whole list of studies that have been done, and I think it actually makes the point that you can leverage that work, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel in some of these areas. So the municipal courts issue has been studied, and so it is time to focus in on what the recommendation ought to be, and to understand that that is one of the driving factors for arrest warrants and all the things that have led to unrest in part. Mm-hmm. So is it time to take those studies and focus a bright light on them and say, now is the time for action? And the commission can play that role as well. And in the education space, you're absolutely right. There are difficult issues that have been around for a long time. But here again, the focus now is much stronger, and the interest in listening carefully to folks to say, you know what we've been doing isn't working, what do we need to change? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we have to bring to light.
When will you all meet first? And I'm sure you've been following everything that's been going on the past 2 days. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we'll meet next week for the first time, and all the information for the meeting will be posted on stlpositivechange.org. We're encouraging people to go there. We anticipate posting and being quite transparent about those meetings, posting minutes, having opportunities for community engagement and voice in all of those meetings. And so we really encourage people to be a part of that. We look forward to it, kind of setting forth those guiding principles and hearing the community inform our priorities and how we engage and prioritize these different buckets of work in that first meeting. The other thing is, you kind of talk about what has happened the last couple of days. We recognize that this is the kind of energy, quite frankly, that we've got to steward in a positive direction. We've got to be creative about how we do that. And we also, I think this helps to create some of the energy that we see, helps to create some of what we will need to hold accountable those who have to implement the recommendations, quite frankly. So the question becomes, how do we take the kind of energy that we've seen, not just the last 2 days, but quite frankly over the last 109 days, and steward it into a process where people in the community continue to be engaged and continue to hold accountable systems to make sure that we get to some positive change.
Governor Nixon put out feelers for anybody who wants to apply for this commission. Please apply. There was over 300 people who wanted to be on this commission. Were you, both of you, did you guys volunteer, or did the governor volunteer, tap you on the shoulder and say, I'd like you to serve?
So I know there was a lot of outreach there. I actually applied through the process. I got contacted by a number of folks and encouraged to do so.
Right.
And I did go through the website like everyone else and put in the application and pleased to serve. Yeah. And so I'm glad that a number of folks have.
My name was submitted from groups that the governor's office reached out to seek applicants.
Yeah. You know, the one person who's the one group that is not represented on that commission.
Who's that?
Member of the media.
That would be frightening.
I knew you were going to say that. Can you imagine McGraw
I'm not
on the Ferguson Commission?
McGraw, you have a narrow definition. If we've learned nothing in the last 109 days, it's that anyone with a smartphone is a part of the media at this point.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they don't have to get cartoned off into a certain area to report.
That is
true. They can do so from the middle of the protest line.
That is true. But in terms of more of the traditional media, I think that's why sometimes it's nice to have a gatekeeper. And to the misinformation that is being reported by these citizen journalists fuels the flame and fuels the fire unnecessarily. And where the traditional media, we're the ones who are, quote unquote, the adults in the room when it comes to media.
Well, we've been pleased to have the support and framing and space for folks like this, helping us to reach out to the community and say, we really need you to be a part of this process. And quite frankly, folks have been generous with their time and space and editorial space on this topic. And so we're thankful, and we hope to continue to nurture that.
We're short on time. What do you want from the public? What do you need from the public? What do you want from the public? Because whether they agree with what you're doing or not, or think it's going to be a failure, they want to help you in any way they can. So what do you need?
I think one of the keys here is public engagement and the ability of our community to listen to each other and to listen in new and different ways, and to realize that you don't have to see eye to eye to walk arm in arm, that you can listen to understand, not just to be understood. So the website is a perfect way to engage, stlpositivechange.org. Lots of vehicles there. There's ways to be informed. A companion website that they're linked up, STL Forward, also has some interesting information on resources. We will be reaching out and asking folks for input on specific topics that they have views on. And so what we need is engagement, and we need folks of widely varying views to come to the table.
That website again is?
stlpositivechange.org.
Reverend Starsky Wilson. What kind of car do you drive? You drive the Starsky and Hutch
Oh
mobile?
my goodness, he cannot
It's
get
actually
off of
it's a
this,
close
can he?
color, actually. Now I think about it. It's a Volkswagen, but it's close
right.
to a tomato red.
There you
No
go.
stripe.
Rich McClure, both of them co-founders of the Ferguson Commission. Gentlemen, we wish you Godspeed and the best of luck. And if you
Absolutely.
need any help from us, just all you have to do is ask.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Kelly. Thank you, McGraw.
8:30